The Orica plant at Kooragang Island is now a no-go zone after plumes of hexavalent chromium escaped into the atmosphere.
Orica advised that an incident occurred at approximately 6 p.m. on Monday the 8th of August 2011 at the Newcastle plant, and that it immediately shut down the plant.
The potentially dangerous gas was released into the air for around half an hour, right in the firing line residents in the nearby suburb of Stockton.
These preliminary findings and sampling have confirmed that some of the fallout from the incident has reached the northern residential area of Stockton.
The information provided by the company indicates only a small proportion of that plume was released or reached Stockton.
It's been revealed the state government was only made aware of the incident 16 hours later.
Although the incident occurred on Monday evening, we weren't aware of it till the next day.
Even more astounding, affected residents are only finding out via a letterbox drop tonight. While hexavalent chromium isn't harmful in small doses, authorities say it does have the potential to cause skin irritations and respiratory problems, and in the case of long-term high exposure, cancer.
The Office of Environment and Heritage will not permit the plant to restart until such time as Orica can demonstrate that the ammonia plant is safe to operate.
Tyson Cottrell, NBN News. June's coronial inquest looked at several deadly rock fishing incidents, including that of Poe, Dylan and Agnes Poon and Dennis and Jenny Tin, who died on the 9th of May last year near Catherine Hill Bay. Today, Deputy State Coroner Mark Buscombe handed down his findings.
Well, the coroner's findings really reiterate the fact that rock fishing drowning is an issue in New South Wales. It's the second highest cause of drowning on our coastline. And I guess it reinforces the fact that we really need a statewide, holistic, all-community strategy.
We welcome the outcome that Coroner Buscombe has delivered to us today.
The coroner noted that all 12 victims were from non-Anglo backgrounds. He called for the Department of Primary Industries to consider making the use of flotation devices compulsory and questioned the length of time it takes agencies to erect warning signs at danger spots. Coroner Mark Buscombe also recommended extra funding be available to organisations to establish safety campaigns aimed at people from non-Anglo backgrounds.
Appropriate safety signage, flotation devices and a number of other current, tools to deal with rock fishing drowning are currently out there, are currently being implemented in various areas. I guess what we took out of the findings was the need to apply that in one sort of package.
We're sad at the loss of the people who have lost their lives, but certainly we don't want to lose too many more.
Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
The Facebook tirade erupted when Annie Smith accused Aaron Buman of favouring developers, acting illegally and considering himself above the law, and ended when he referred to her as a closet alcoholic, among other things.
Initially I laughed and then I realised the ramifications of it. It was out there on the internet for anybody to see and it's totally defamatory and derogatory and uncalled for.
The heated exchange took place after a Newcastle City Council meeting in which a majority of councillors voted to reject a proposal by Aldi to build a supermarket in Merewether. Mrs Smith had fought hard against the proposal while Councillor Buman was in favour of it. He has since apologised for the outburst but says Mrs Smith isn't blameless.
She shouldn't have attacked me. That's it at the end of the day. I'm not a punching bag.
Councillor Buman says he was ready to forget the incident until it made front page news.
I deleted them within 2 hours. That really should have been the end of it between the two of us.
And that won't be the end of it.
I will be filing a code of conduct with Newcastle City Council and yes, I have not ruled out legal action.
One of the problems with social networking sites like Facebook is that unless you customise your privacy settings, just about anyone can log on and read what you've written. And if you happen to have written something particularly nasty, well, that can quickly lead to a defamation case. Madeline McKell, NBN News.
Diagnosed 20 years ago, Vicky Woods has never let MS rule her life, but concedes it is slowing her down.
But certainly in the last couple of years it's deteriorated, but still upright and still going, and that's the positive aspect.
She's among the hundreds of Hunter patients who've taken part in one of the world's largest genetic studies focusing on MS. It found the presence of a group of genes in sufferers.
These 57 genes, the vast majority of them are involved in immune pathology, control of inflammation.
It's an important finding, but it's only part of the puzzle. Not everyone with the genes goes on to develop the disease.
So there is another factor, an environmental factor, probably vitamin D, sunlight, or a virus that triggers then an immune reaction. And because of your genes, you can't really control this reaction.
Dr. Lechner Scott says research is continuing at a rapid pace, and for patients like Vicky, it holds great hope for the future.
Now I just believe 100% that the cure is just, this close, and every day that there's just always something new, and the journey's getting shorter because there's going to be an end.
Danny, you happy it's been held over? Well, look, you feeling confident on the 30th? See you, Danny. Talk to you later.
Fresh from surgery earlier in the day and onto ward rounds, welcome to the world of a young doctor. 26-year-old Dr. Inika Weaver is a second-year intern at John Hunter Hospital and one of the stars of Young Doctors, an 8-part series being produced by the 9 network.
It is very interesting wandering around the hospital with a camera crew. You tend to surprise a lot of patients and a lot of staff members, but they're getting used to it, I think.
Filming started 10 weeks ago, tracing the journeys of 7 interns as they learn about life and loss.
We're going to operating theatres, we're seeing babies being born, we're going on night shift with them. It really is just an access all areas to see the journey.
At the moment, Inika is training in cardiothoracics and eventually hopes to specialise in surgery. She's also clearly comfortable in front of the camera, but admits there'll be some nerves come premiere night.
So I think having a big group of people to sit down and watch it and have a giggle about the things that you said.
The series is set to air on NBN later in the year.
There's footy fans, and then there's Nate Pute, a 4-year-old from Raymond Terrace who, when it comes to league stats, could become simply the best. How much do you like rugby league?
This much.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot. And I like sport a lot.
But his fascination goes beyond watching it with his parents or even scoring a few tries at home. Nate can remember every game and every score this season. Round 13, the Eels and the Dragons.
14 all.
Round 6, the Roosters and Broncos.
24-6.
Round 4, the Broncos and Panthers.
18-10.
Ever since I can ever remember, it's just an obsession with football. This is playing football, talking about football. He takes his big league week for show and tell.
And before you ask, he can read that back to front as well. On the advice of doctors, Mum Amy and stepdad Ryan are having Nate's IQ tested next month.
For his memory to remember all that, it's got me stumped.
Our test lasted well over 15 minutes. What about round 17? Who did the Storm play?
Thinking?
And even when we thought we'd stumped him...
Nobody, because they had a boy.
But it's clear this preschooler with a big footy brain is still a little kid at heart.
Guess what I got?
What did you get?
I got a movie.
A movie?
It's called Honey, I Shrunk Ourselves.
He's able to interact with other children really well, but like I said, he does, some of the things that Nate does come out with is just straight over most children's heads. Some of the things he comes out with is straight over our heads.
Nat Wallace, NBN News.
The Gunners' trophy cabinet hasn't been opened in a decade, and when Edgeworth came close in the opening minutes, it looked like the cupboard would remain bare. The home side had its chances, but Edgeworth keeper Ben Smith was a rock between the posts. South Cardiff, however, broke the deadlock on the half-hour mark, Dino Fajkovic slotting home a deft cross. In the second half, Smith continued to deny the Gunners, much to the frustration of South Cardiff fans, one even sending a streamer his way. Edgeworth struck back in the 66th minute, care of the dependable Joel Wood. And with no more goals before full time, the sides went straight to a penalty shootout. The Eagles were in the box seat, leading 3-2 when Smith was sensationally red-carded after saving a penalty. And then letting the Gunners faithful know about it. The gesture wasn't missed by a sideline official either, and Smith went from hero to villain in seconds. Stand-in keeper Blake Glennie couldn't stop the next two penalties. The Eagles missed both theirs, and suddenly the silverware was Cardiff's. Blake Doyle, NBN News.
Yeah, it's a good opportunity for me, and I'll take it with open arms, and hopefully I can do well over in Japan.
Give me a couple of circuits in the Beaufighter today and that'd be heaven. A much underrated, forgotten aeroplane.
4 days after a potentially dangerous chemical swept over these houses, Stockton residents are still realising what happened.
Well, I thought they should have let us know earlier, for sure.
Are you annoyed that you haven't been told anything?
Very annoyed.
I think it's a disgrace, and I think we should be better informed, us residents of Stockton, because it is our life and our children and our waterways.
The state government today defended the length of time it took to inform residents about the risk of the hexavalent chromium plume.
The Office of Environment and Heritage didn't get information from Orica until well after the event. That certainly has been unacceptable.
The company took 16 hours to let the government know, but then the state government took more than 50 hours to let the people of Stockton know.
They say, oh, we've got 24 hours to tell people. You haven't got 24 hours to tell people there's poison coming out the chimney. You got 5 minutes, and nobody was told.
The only information given to residents, these pamphlets. Many wasted no time taking precautions. This preschool was today closed and off limits to children and staff, and this sign here tells you exactly why. Management have ordered everything on site to be completely washed down to avoid any possibility of contamination. And your grandchild was here on Tuesday?
Yes, both of them.
How does that make you feel?
Very upset and worried, yes.
But authorities say the risk is minimal.
At this stage, we think that there is no major health risk subsequent to the incident at the Orica plant.
As of today, on the basis of the evidence I've seen so far, risk is very low to zero. I'm hoping to be in a position very shortly to be able to say to you the risk is zero.
If Orica would have done the right thing and let the Stockton people know, we can accept that. What we cannot accept is the fact that they've hidden the fact of what has occurred.
Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
How the semi-trailer came to lie in this ditch is a mystery. Police say the driver, aged in his early 60s, was taking the fully laden coal truck to Kooragang Island just before 8 a.m. when the rig crossed to the wrong side of the road. It then toppled and overturned, trapping the man inside. A passerby tried to help, but it was too late. The driver died at the scene.
It is sad, and police can only reiterate the message to drive carefully. There's no assertion at this stage, however, that driver behaviour plays any part in this accident.
The section of John Renshaw Drive was closed for most of the day as emergency services worked to retrieve the vehicle. There were fears its fuel tanks could rupture, spilling 700 litres of diesel.
There has been a small amount of diesel spilled. The fire brigade, including hazmat, are on scene to contain that spill and are working with police to make the scene safe.
Crash scene investigators have been unable to determine the accident's cause. The semi-trailer will now undergo a mechanical examination while an autopsy will be carried out on the body. Madeline McKell, NBN News. This grainy security camera footage shows the initial raid. At 9 o'clock on Sunday night, thieves began trying to smash their way through Rutherford's Better Electrical Store's rear access door. Once they eventually gained entry, they made off with big screen TVs, vacuum cleaners and 15 laptops. The haul worth an estimated $35,000. Now detectives believe the same group returned at 2 o'clock this morning to carry out another raid.
Police are pretty confident that there is a strong connection based on the type of motor vehicle that the offenders have used.
Officers are looking for a silver or grey late 90s model Holden Commodore spotted at the time of both crimes. Once again, the bandits stole televisions and vacuum cleaners, another $35,000 worth of goods. Police want to hear from any witnesses and indeed anyone with information about either theft.
Anyone who's selling 3D televisions, Samsung TVs, Dyson vacuum cleaners for lower than the market rate, just ask people to call Crime Stoppers.
Madeline McKell, NBN News.
It creates an added meaning to the work in that as it washes away by rain and by sun and everything on it, it creates another patina. So they're kind of movable art galleries.
A picture tells 1,000 words, and doesn't Eddie Cross know it? In 2006, he suffered a brain injury while playing Aussie Rules. He's since fought back, and now, through the Head Start program, is teaching and inspiring others with similar injuries in the art of photography.
I've just got a whole lot of inspiration out of it, which pretty well validated what I always believed in. Laughter is the best medicine.
Mother of 3, Deb Todd, was involved in a high-speed crash several years ago.
It's teaching me and how to take photos, obviously, how to present the photo, in Picasso, how we edit it and crop them.
I love photography. Once I get behind the camera, I don't know when to stop.
Scott Priestley was a keen photographer before crashing his motorbike in 2006. He started the photography group and reckons he can teach his teacher a thing or two.
It wants me to achieve more. It allows me to achieve more.
For Eddie Cross, the love and the learning flows both ways.
They're inspiring me, so it's just a whole lot of love going around, a whole lot of fun, and yeah, we just keep improving. It's great.
An exhibition of the group's work is now on at the Compass Housing Art Gallery on Beaumont Street, Hamilton. Blake Doyle, NBN News.
Ben Kantorowski is still feeling the effects of his trip to Colombia with the young Socceroos. The journey home took 3 days. The captain was suspended for Australia's final game against Spain, but is still happy with his efforts as his recovery from a knee reconstruction continues.
Could call it a good base training camp over there, and in that altitude as well, sort of really worked the fitness very hard. So it was sort of good to have that base fitness and go away and going to play some really intense games.
Last night, his Newcastle teammates recorded a 3-0 trial game win over Broadmeadow. Ryan Griffiths and Labino Haliti opened the scoring for the Jets. Marko Jesic rounded out the win for the A-League club, grabbing a second-half double. Kantorowski and Nikolai Topor-Stanley will both be considered when the Jets clash with the Heart in Melbourne next week.
It's competition for places, everyone's on their toes, still not quite sure whether they will be part of the starting 11, and we like it that way.
As for the Magic, they've already claimed the State League Minor Premiership with 2 rounds to play. On Sunday, they'll face a Hamilton side desperate to stay in touch with the top 4. Meanwhile, Edgeworth will play West Wallsend without keeper Ben Smith, who's suspended after being sent off in Wednesday's loss in the Knockout Cup. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. This time last year, Souths were on target for the wooden spoon. 12 months on, the Lions are in equal first, only trailing Maitland on for and against.
I think we would have been happy just to make semis, but yeah, as it's turned out, we've sort of had to change that, and we're hoping top 2 at least.
But they'll do it the hard way. Nathan Hinton will miss 2 weeks with a knee injury, and he's not the only one in doubt.
Scott O'Neill hurt his ankle at training last night, so a bit of bad luck for this time of year, but we got a very strong side still. We've called a few blokes up from reserve grade who have done the job for us all year. And
on the court, the Hunters can claim the Waratah Basketball League Minor Premiership with a win over the Sharks tomorrow, before the final series returns to Broadmeadow in a fortnight.
Losing down in Sydney last year has definitely been motivation for all the guys to actually get back here and play in front of the home crowd.
American import Marcus Vanderhyde is hoping the Hunters' success will play a part in Newcastle's potential return to the NBL.
That's what everybody's talking about around town. We don't necessarily know who's going to be running it or who's going to be leading it or coaching it, but I can definitely sense that around the community they definitely want a higher level team here.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Dozens of frightened faces, Stockton residents united today, still furious over both the state government and Orica's handling of a potentially dangerous chemical leak.
Nothing has been good enough and we can't see that changing at all, and we're really worried for our children and all our people here.
On Monday night, plumes of hexavalent chromium escaped from the Orica plant. Dozens of homes are exposed to the known carcinogen, but residents were left in the dark for 3 days. Today there was some good news with interim toxicology results coming through.
Everything I've seen so far as a professional toxicologist leads me to be reassured that children are not going to have health issues.
The Environment Minister has also announced an independent inquiry into how the incident was dealt with.
It's very clear that the processes in place need to be improved. Industry needs to provide to authorities timely information about incidences. Authorities need to take the action. We'll look at that.
But the minister's own actions are being called into question. Opposition leader John Robertson wants to know why it took Ms Parker more than 2 days to tell residents about the leak, given her office was notified on Tuesday morning.
We need to see this minister stood down until such time as this inquiry is concluded. This minister has sat on information for 54 hours.
Madeleine McKell, NBN News. The views are nothing short of breathtaking. 2 years after the new surf house was first proposed, it's fast becoming a reality.
The main building shell is all but finished. It's locked up. We're just waiting on the pergola and the glass to go around this open area, and the fit-out is in full swing.
Come November, the top floor will house 2 restaurants and a bar, not to mention this funky-looking toilet block, which, once complete, will be covered in 180,000 corks. The whole interior has been designed to take full advantage of its spectacular oceanfront position.
But I just think the indoor-outdoor feel is something that I love in a house or an apartment and design, so this is a bit of an extension of that.
The ground and first floors will be completed a little earlier. At ground level, there'll be public amenities and a licensed cafe. Upstairs, a 350-seat function centre. They're due to open mid-October, and while that's 2 months away, 60 bookings have already been placed for Surf House's function room. Mr Stronach says taking on the multi-million-dollar venture was a bit of a gamble, but it looks like it's one that will pay off.
It's beaten or passed my expectations. I think the look of it is just sensational, and there wouldn't be a day go past where at least so half a dozen people don't say to me on the phone or face to face how great it's looking.
Madeline McKell, NBN News.
The Hawks were looking pretty in pink prior to kick-off, but their play certainly wasn't out of character against their 2010 grand final opponents. Big Willie So set the tone early with a barging run. Before Maitland's defence could settle, Ben Harris combined with Toalima Nevo out wide to set up Chris Stratton for the opener. From the restart, the Hawks showed their intent. Pat Kilmurray found space down the left before Steve Sione finished off in the corner. Hamilton threatened to blow the visitors out of the water inside 10 minutes when Kilmurray scored a try of his own. 17-0 in front, the Hawks made some rare mistakes, Damien Wells bombing a certainty. Maitland soon made them pay. A neat flick by halfback Jono O'Toole put James Johnston into a yawning gap. After the break, Hamilton reasserted its dominance, Joden Perry crashing over from close range. The boys in black had their chances to claw their way back. John Birrell put them within striking distance. But despite losing So to the bin, the Hawks were never really challenged, as Wells redeemed himself to seal the win.
Health officials finally delivered some good news.
We can confirm there's no health risk to residents in the Stockton area.
For residents, it's been 4 days of uncertainty.
Yeah, that is excellent to hear.
Makes me feel really good.
71 samples were taken from homes in the area. 11 came back with only low traces of chromium. But still, it's hard to wash away a mistake that could have been far more serious. The precautionary clean-up continued all day. The company responsible for leaking the potentially deadly chemical even hiring its own hazmat experts to follow up.
They're running around taking tests, more tests and everything, so yeah, how bad has it been?
Now the good news about chromium is the chromium that was released was in the format of chromium-6, that's the more toxic, concerning type of chromium, but that breaks down in time.
While residents have been given the all clear, questions still remain about those exposed inside the plant itself. There, 20 workers may have felt the full force of the chemical. WorkCover says Orica has tested those men, but the company is yet to release the results and didn't return our calls today.
The levels in the plant at Orica would certainly have been higher, that makes sense.
Nat Wallace, NBN News.
With Newcastle in control, mistakes were proving costly. The Warriors got their noses in front, but with 6 minutes left, the Knights had a penalty which could have tied things up. They didn't, and when Richie Fayoso dropped the ball, the captain was cursing his decision.
I backed myself to kick that, and I think I'm kicking well. I just thought we could score, basically.
Post-game, Rick Stone offered few excuses.
I think we made 9 errors in the second half to their 4, and a lot of those were early tackles in our own half and just put a lot of pressure on our footy side.
In Newcastle Rugby League, Souths were looking to maintain top spot. Joe Cudmore and Daniel Wood did their bit for the cause. The Scorpions hit back when Matt Simon found Shane Beale, who showed amazing fingertip control in the wet. Macquarie hit the front when Simon again went to the air and Beale cleaned up the scraps. Standing in for Nathan Hinton, David Geary kicked in behind the line before Byron Warren brought the Lions level.
For 4 days, they stood around in fear. Now, these residents have a letter of demand.
This letter has been taken to Orica this morning.
They want the company to start talking. After it released a deadly chemical into the air last Monday, it was those in the firing line who were the last to know.
The cover-up has been the biggest issue for me. That's the thing that's worried me mostly.
The residents claim initial test results are still a mystery. According to its own report, the EPA was on the ground the next day and detected hexavalent chromium, but it was only tests done 2 days later that have been released.
Therefore, it's going to be a lot more diluted in the ground, and therefore negative samples come back.
I would expect that there would be nothing. I want to know what happened earlier.
It's one of many questions facing the Premier, who's engaged in a battle to save his Environment Minister.
I have full confidence in Minister Parker that she has handled this situation well.
The people of Newcastle, and in particular Stockton, needed an Aaron Brockovich, and instead they got a sloppy Robin Parker, someone who sat on advice for 54 hours.
Given time, Erin Brockovich, the woman who fought for a town exposed to chromium, could well be involved. The American has links to an Australian law firm, which has already started calling residents.
I'm furious, I'm angry, I'm frustrated, and I think this needs to go a whole lot further.
Nat Wallace, NBN News.
I've done a lot more homework, and the sign completely complies with every rule and regulation I can find.
As their troubles stack up, families are being forced out of their homes and into shocking situations.
Washing their children in washrooms at McDonald's, trying to do their kids' homework by the light of the car.
Helen Keevers of the Benevolent Society has worked in welfare for 35 years and says she's never before seen so many families in such desperate need.
Just in one of the services that we run, over 250 people contacted us in the last 12 months, really around homelessness and housing issues and their whole families.
The situation is particularly acute in the Hunter Valley, where the mining boom has squeezed out low-income earners. The Benevolent Society, among other welfare groups, is calling for urgent action. It's lobbying for an increased supply of social housing and for more rental subsidy schemes targeting at-risk families.
I think we need some dialogue between business, government and welfare to see if there are other creative solutions we can come up with.
In the meantime, charities are struggling to fill the void. Local families in need can contact the Benevolent Society's Family Referral Service.
Kurt Fernley raced just the once yesterday, but he's celebrating 2 wins. After 40 years, wheelchair athletes lined up for the start of the City to Surf.
I think by getting wheelchairs in these mass participation events puts people in wheelchairs in people's sites. It puts people in wheelchairs in people's living rooms.
Race organisers took the initiative, but the 2-time Paralympian rallied the competitors. This time around there was a dozen. Next year, who knows?
Hopefully we get kids from across the country to the City to Surf every year, and it'd be so great to see 50 wheelchairs start that race.
Training partner and new mum Christy Dawes shared the podium with Fernley. Still regaining her pre-baby fitness, she says the more races in Australia, the better.
Any race that gives us the opportunity to push on a different course and just gives us some variety is always a good thing.
As for the 14-kilometre course itself,
it's a really hard hit out. And I think that's great. That makes it what it is. Being able to throw yourself against something that is challenging.
Lauren Bloodwell, NBN News.
Jason Kalina was so committed to his rehabilitation plan, he was cleared to resume training earlier than expected. Today, he saw the fruits of his labour, getting back to what he does best.
Yeah, I was excited. I got up about 5 o'clock this morning because I was so excited to start training with the boys.
His return to the training paddock lived up to expectation for the coaching staff and his teammates.
He wants the ball all the time, and it's something that the young boys really need to develop. And when I was younger, I really looked to those players.
Just the tempo of the game lifts with him, and he's also always talking on the park.
The Socceroo says his knee is feeling better every day, and at this stage he's hoping to play his first trial for Newcastle on September 7.
Training's just not good enough at times. It's the games that get you match fit, and that's what I'm looking forward to, is playing games again, and that's what I'm all about.
Ryan Griffiths is looking forward to forming a lethal combination with Kalina on the left, so that both can showcase their talent to Jets fans.
The players know the way that I play now. Yeah. Last year I come in, they didn't really understand where I was running and what I was doing, so it's just good to get that feeling and that cohesion with the team again.
The Jets travel to Morwell in Victoria on Friday for a trial with the Melbourne Heart. Nikolai Topor-Stanley and Ben Kantarovski will know on Thursday whether they'll make the trip.
Just want to make sure that both are ready, because we can only take so many players, and you don't want to take players that won't be able to play at least 2/3 of the game.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. Another regatta, another gold medal for Nathan Outeridge and Ian Jensen.
We never would have expected this, and the fact that we've got it is amazing, and one more event before the games here next year, so hopefully we can keep the winning streak running, and hopefully we haven't used up too much of our luck.
The Lake Macquarie duo headed into the final day of the Weymouth and Portland International event, trailing Spain and just a few points in front of New Zealand. The three crews spent time in front in the medal race, but in the end the Aussies did enough to scrape home by a countback from the Spanish.
Today was the most difficult day out of them all, and we're just happy that we came out on equal points, but with the countback we'll take the win for sure.
Onto the ice, and the Newcastle North Stars have survived a tough encounter with Sydney to maintain second spot on the Australian ice hockey ladder. The home side created plenty of chances and was on the receiving end of some solid hits. It took a cheeky flick from Jason Chalker to break the deadlock midway through the second period. The North Stars weren't shy about dishing out their own punishment, while Australian representative Matt Ezzi did his part as Newcastle completed the 3-1 victory. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
They thought the worst was over, but it seems these Stockton residents were wrong.
This toxic spill has taken a turn for the worse today. What we're now hearing is, in fact, it's not 6 blocks that are affected, but 30.
The affected area has now been divided into inner and outer zones. The latter adds 5 more streets and their surrounds. The State Office of Environment and Heritage says that zone was established as a precaution.
I don't trust the O'Farrell government because they covered this up for 54 hours.
They were so morally bankrupt not to even notify the community that they thought they could get away with it.
I've felt from the first time that felt like I've been betrayed, and I felt like I've been stabbed in the back, and I cannot for the life of me understand that they will not speak to the people.
Can you tell us what you're doing around these houses?
I'm sorry, I can't make any comment.
Is there anything to be worried about here?
So you speak to the Orica representative.
Orica won't speak to us. Can you give us some answers at all?
Sorry.
An Orica spokeswoman later said the company is working with residents on the issue. It's established an assembly point to help coordinate the clean-up.
The clean-up effort began at around 5 o'clock last night. 78 homes were washed down and decontaminated, but it's set to be a mammoth operation. In total, 425 homes will need to be cleaned.
Tyson Cottrell, NBN News. Say hello to the new Westpac 2. The former NYPD chopper had little time to settle into its new surrounds this morning. Within hours, it was dispatched to the mid-north coast.
I received a call early this morning of a crew member on board a chemical freighter. He was around 200 mile offshore when we got the call. The ship had soon steamed in to around 100 mile off Port Macquarie.
The job made all the more difficult by a lack of landing space. But thanks to the skills of the pilot, the chopper managed to complete the medical mission. The patient, suffering appendicitis, was taken to Port Macquarie Hospital before Westpac 2 made its way back to base.
Certainly a big one, a long way offshore, but the helicopter did a fantastic job.
The chopper has all the latest technology to give it every chance of success. It was built in 2009, but the $10 million aircraft has received a complete refit and upgrade since arriving from America to give paramedics more room to move and provide life-saving treatment. It already looks like money well spent.
Just about to go back to Port Macquarie to pick up a medical patient.
Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
Branxton, a small town and just a thoroughfare for many. And according to a group of local business people, it's crying out for more. That's why they've spoken out in support of the Huntley New Town project, meeting with the developer in person for the first time this afternoon.
This area has long relied on coal mines and so on and so forth. This is something to give us something to sustain our economic development into the future, basically.
The plan to build 7,500 homes in a town centre right near Branxton have been knocked back on 2 separate occasions by the Land and Environment Court, but developer LWP is appealing again, standing by its $1.5 billion proposal.
It's to create invaluable housing for the project. There is a shortage of housing with all the economic activity going on. It will create 3,000 permanent jobs and be ideally located next to the extended Hunter Expressway.
And even if Huntley gets knocked back again, don't expect the plans to disappear.
We're not going away, and we're here to advise people that we're not going away. The fundamentals of this project remain enormously strong. And in terms of major new towns around Australia, I don't know one that's better situated in terms of infrastructure.
Kate Haberfield, NBN News.
The long turnaround between games saw the Knights head indoors for a change of pace. Joel Edwards was a big hit on the cricket pitch. But it's hits on the field that have made the highlight reels this season and made Edwards a first-grade regular.
Stoney and the assistants, they definitely thought there was areas in my defence that needed to be brought up to a new level. So yeah, definitely that's something I worked on.
Newcastle's defence will need to be at its best on Monday when Darren Lockyer rides into town with the Broncos for the final time.
Semi-final starts now. If we don't win 2 games out of our last 3, we could fall short. So we need to win every game we can.
Proving just how seriously Knights players are taking the run into the finals, the entire roster has vowed to give up alcohol for the rest of the season.
Conscious thing that we realise there's not long in the season to go, and we need to make sure that we prepare ourselves as well as we can.
Up in Brisbane, the Broncos are taking no risks with injured stars Jaral Yao Yi and Ben Hannant. The test pair will be given at least another week to get fit after being left out of the side to face Newcastle.
A few of the guys have been playing a lot of football this year and they need to freshen up. A few guys had the day off today, so it's good to reward those guys, and for the rest of us it gives us opportunity to get a few extra sessions in.
Despite ongoing hamstring problems, Justin Hodges will definitely make the trip. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
We've just been promoted to Division 1 with our win in Melbourne Division 2 World Championships this year. But yeah, it'd be great to get up into the Olympic division and mix it up with some of the guys with multi-million-dollar contracts.